I don't know about you, but nothing gets me more excited than being irrelevant, except for the news the doctors gave me the other day. Congratulations, it's a divorce! You see, if you want to be told what new cards you should buy with the rent money so you can shove them into your DiGiorno's hot and ready commander deck, you have no shortage of options. EDH Rec, Commander's Herald, Channel Fireball, Draft Sim, you can be told what to think about wonderful cards like Flock of Rabid Sheep as if you were one. But unfortunately, all of these critiques are on the internet, meaning only the sets that are that recent have been reviewed. I don't know if you know this, but Magic is older than the internet, which means if sets like Legends were ranked, it was probably in journals or in magazines, documents so old they sank alongside their writers on the Titanic. But I love scuba diving, and that's not just an excuse I give to the other people in the hot tub. I'm gonna review all 55, yes, 55 Legends in the original Legend set. Welcome to Gamesfreak's Essays, and today the essay stands for Set Archaeologist. Adun Oakenshield. Adun Oakenshield is proof that old things can still work, which is a lesson all the millennials will need to learn when they realize they'll never be able to retire. For 3 mana, you can return any creature from the graveyard to your hand, and that's great because unlike your Reanimator commanders that win by cheating as if they were my ex, you get to enjoy those cast triggers. Got a Beast Whisperer? Bam, you get to draw a card. Got a Sarkhan's Unsealing? Bam, you get to deal damage. Got an Equilibrium? Bam, you get to get the fuck out of my pod. You can even return cards that discard themselves for extra effects, like creatures with Cycling or Blood Rush, and since Oakenshield is Jund, you've got the full range of sacrifice effects to work with. The only problem is that right now he's $180 and I'm unemployed. Angus Mackenzie. Quick rules refresher. Each turn in Magic has several different steps. There's untap, upkeep, draw, main, end, and cleanup. What's that? I forgot one? No, I didn't, because Angus Mackenzie is on the field and he invalidated the entire concept of combat like Gandhi backed by nuclear weapons. Sure, he doesn't have any problems in the power level department, but he has plenty in the having any sort of fun at all department. Because when you fight against an Angus Mackenzie, you're in for a game so long it makes Persona 5 look like a WarioWare microgame. If you want my advice, pack a sleeping bag and something to start a campfire, preferably one that burns fierce and hot enough you can chuck Angus into it. Don't worry, the game you were playing would have only ended when the sun became a red giant and swallowed the earth whole, so really you're just moving up the timetable a little. Arcades Sabboth. The soul-saving grace of this card is that when you hit someone with him, you get to shout out Arcades nuts! Axelrod Gunnarson. There's not much to say about Axelrod Gunnarson the creature. He costs way too much, is way too small, and has a triggered ability that's outclassed by a fucking prodigal sorcerer. You're better off with literally anybody else. However, the type of person who plays him? An absolute punk god. They use Axelrod because that one grungy, unsleeved copy of the card is also used to cut the copious amounts of cocaine they're on. These people give absolutely no fucks and will break the rules and your heart multiple times a game because what are you gonna do, call them out on it? I once brought home an Axelrod Gunnarson player to my parents and they told me I was excommunicated. Ayesha Tanaka. There are 2 types of people who play Ayesha. The person who rushes out Ayesha and Mycosynth Lattice as fast as possible to constantly counter anything you ever do, and the person who rushes out Ayesha and Helm of Chat Zook as fast as possible so they get to explain to you that banding isn't really that complicated, I swear, guys! If you ever run into one, an easy trick to beat these guys is to blow up their Cathedral of Sarah and Seafarer's Key and watch them immediately resign while they cuss you out about how you're unfairly targeting them. They're right, of course, but it's still fun. Barktooth Warbeard. I understand that Warbeard here is supposed to be an intimidating warrior who will befriend you only to stab you in the back and take your wife, but the fact that his name is Barktooth and the flavor text says he bites as well as he barks suggests to me that he's actually just a lonely dog furry with an angry Ransona who's only notable for having exclusively bad takes about the nudist colony in Zootopia. Avoid like the plague. Bartel Runax. Thank God Bartel Runax can't be targeted by auras, because everyone was clamoring to imprison this behemoth in the moon. I can only imagine the scenario where this is relevant. No, we can deal with that Elishnorn later. Bartel is... By God. My reprobation. It's useless! We're all doomed! He's unstoppable! Boris Devilboon. As if the name Boris wasn't unthreatening enough, Devil Booty here isn't even capable of summoning demons that can legally drink. Chromium. Chromium has Rampage, an ability that makes him stronger when multiple creatures block him. He also has Flying, an ability that makes it difficult for most creatures to block him. This genius set of abilities is the best combination I've seen since Bleach and Ammonia. Dakin Blackblade. Dakin's actually a great general, and one of Legend's hidden gems. Dakin gets bigger the more lands you control, meaning he scales better than most of the other commanders on this list. He's also in blue, so there's no shortage of ways to make him unblockable, hexproof, or a card-drawing engine. With this, it doesn't take much for him to become an actual threat. On the deck building side, he's simple enough to understand that you don't have to read your opponents the Magna Carta every time you play him, but the fact that he's not in green makes him more deceptively deep than a lot of other lands matter commanders. You actually need to put a little bit of thought into getting more lands onto the field, and that might even make you lean into some of White's ramping skills. Black rounds it out by being great at removal and tutoring for powerful equipments, and cards like Disciple of Bolas and Mask of Griselbrand can really leverage his ever-increasing power. What a great card. Gabriel Angelfire. Unlike Chromium, Gabriel Angelfire is a combat-focused commander that doesn't necessarily have flying. In fact, he doesn't necessarily have anything at all until you give it to him at the start of your upkeep, and the ability he gets only lasts until the one after that. Never fear though, because Angelfire blesses us with the almighty Rampage 3 as one of the choices, an ability which gives him +3/+3 for each creature that blocks him past the first. That's insane, and he basically invalidates any board as long as you can slap a lure on him. Give him trample, suit him up with an infiltration lens, and watch as you knock out the tokens player with a single 40 damage hit through all of his weenies while you draw 24 cards. Gastadirk. There's only one reason to build Gastadirk, and that's if you really hate the lone merfolk player at your local game store and are too on probation to afford another manslaughter charge. Gwendolyn DeCorci. Now here's a creature that makes my pants wet, and that's because I am just drenched in the tears of combo players that had to discard their Underworld Breach. Unlike Tiny Bones or Turgrid, Gwendolyn DeCorci doesn't have any fancy tricks to turn the ones in her chosen profession aside because she knows that the reward for having your opponents discard is that their hands become empty, and empty hands are the devil's plaything. The other thing that I really love about Gwendolyn is that she's Magic the Gathering official lore that having sex is in Grixis, meaning it's okay for me to have an unhealthy amount of lust for Nicol Bolas. Halfdane. No commander makes less sense than Halfdane because if all you're doing is matching the power and toughness of the strongest creature on the battlefield, you might as well just smack your opponents with that creature. Yes, I know commander damage is a thing, but so is Blackblade Reforged, so if that's your cup of tea, run a general that has tons of evasion and a naturally high power and toughness, instead of the one that requires you to find the one Esper creature that stops staring at the precious artifacts long enough to go to the gym. Hazazon Tamar. Hazazon Tamar is Magic's first landfall commander because he's actually just Avenger of Zendikar. Make a bunch of 1/1s, pump them up with something like a coat of arms, and watch as your opponents complain that they don't like sand warriors because they're coarse and rough and irritating and they get everywhere. The only problem is that these tokens are so attached to Hazazon that if he ever leaves their side, even for a split second, they all ghost you faster than Inky, Pinky, Blinky, and Clyde. So make sure you either have a sack outlet like Goblin Bombardment available or some way to phase out those creatures so they can dodge their impending non-existence. Hunding Gjornersen. Hunding Gjornersen is so useless I actually checked his EDH page to see how many decks he homes, and I hit the nail on the head because he ranks the lowest out of any commander in Legends with a whopping 10. Rampage just doesn't make sense in Azorius, the colors of flying, protection, and literally making things unblockable. So the question is, how much of a hipster are you willing to be? And if it's that much, why aren't you just playing with my darling Angel Gabriel? Jacques Lever. The weird thing is that green is nowhere to be seen on the flag of France, so Jacques Lever is a major flavor fail. There's nothing extremely exciting here, but at the very least he carves out a respectable niche in helming the creatures that have an effect when you hit them deck, meaning stuff like Hornet Nest, Broodhatch Nintuko, and anything within Rage have a little bit more integrity than the members of whichever political party you happen to disagree with. Jasmine Boreal. A new Jasmine was printed recently in Dominaria United with an ability that made vanilla creatures effectively unblockable, cementing her as Queen of the Gigantosauruses. But the OG Jasmine is still there for the ultra purist that can't even let their commander have anything worthwhile. To a Jasmine Boreal player, creatures already have power and toughness, so text boxes are just a place to put the flavor text. Their rigid adherence to that set of principles puts them in the category of assembly programmers, discophiles, and CRT enthusiasts that I'm terrified will one day calmly and coldly dismember me, piece by piece with an axe while I'm asleep, because I once innocuously said that I liked playing Melee on a flat panel television. Jedit Ojanen. Smash. Jerrard of the Closed Fist. Pass. Johann. Johann just gives your other creatures vigilance, which is clearly not worth 6 mana, so I'm only spending my breath on this guy because he does it in a really weird way. Let me read you his oracle text. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may have a Johann gain Johann can't attack until end of combat. If you do, attacking doesn't cause creatures you control to tap this combat if Johann is untapped. This means that if you are theoretically able to remove all abilities from Johann between the start of combat and declaring attackers, maybe because you cast Humble, you could attack with the other creatures and Johann, and they still wouldn't have to tap to do it, despite the fact that that's completely incongruous with what's actually printed on the physical card. Now that's magic, baby. Kasimir, the Lone Wolf. Kasimir's flavor text suggests he was once a holy man that took up the sword, which would be compelling if he wasn't holding a fucking axe in his artwork. Kei Takahashi. Finally, a commander that no-sells shock! I have to question why you'd play Kei Takahashi over Angus Mackenzie, Oris, or even Italia, but maybe you just like the actual real lore that Kei is half wasp. Yeah, I bet you didn't see that one coming. Lady Caleria. Oh, come on! We just got done with Kei Takahashi and here comes Lady Caleria ruining his fun by doing a whole 3 damage. If you wanted to do absurd Death Touch shenanigans, you're much better off helming your deck with Brigid Hero of Kinsbale, who damages each attacking or blocking creature, but maybe you can't get past the face that only a mother could love. Lady Evangela. Neon Genesis Evangela here is like Angus Mackenzie, but worse. Limiting the fog to just a single creature instead of the whole board kind of ruins the point, but at least the impotence means you'll still have a full set of teeth by the time the game's over. Lady Orca. I can't believe Sandra Everingham captured the exact look of disappointment on Lady Orca's face that my mother had when I told her I couldn't attend her birthday party last year because it conflicted with Midwest Fur Fest. Lavanya Salone. My rating of Lavanya Salone, a 6-mana 4/4 with legendary land walk, hinges entirely on how likely it is your opponent's going to have a legendary land in play. Turns out it's not unfathomable. If your opponent has anything like an Urborg, Nykthos, Gaia's Cradle, Dark Depths, Academy Ruins, Hall of Heliod's Generosity, hell, any of the channel lands, you're golden. Is it worth building an entire Voltron deck around? No, probably not, but the look on your opponent's face will be priceless when you tell them it was entirely their fault they're about to become a dead corpse. Lord Magnus. There are 8 cards that mention Planeswalk. 2 of them, including Lord Magnus himself, invalidate the ability entirely, and one of them is Old Fogey, a card Wizards isn't brave enough to print into starter decks. That just leaves Forest Walk, which is a little more valid, but all getting rid of that does is hose Elves, so build it if you really hate the Elves player at your local game store and are too on probation to avoid another manslaughter charge. Marhalt Elsdragon. It says something that this is basically the exact same card as Hunding Gjornersen, but he's twice as popular. Maybe it's that piercing, hypnotic gaze. Obviously, I think Gabriel Angelfire is still the best Rampage commander in the set, which is why the fact that Marhalt is the one that gets to be reborn as the Blocking Matters commander in Legends Retold miffs me so much. Hopefully, my threatening letters will get through to the higher-ups at Wizards and Gabriel will get the card he deserves. Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar is the first commander we're covering in Legends' weird, decidedly a real person category, and Babylon has a pretty weak showing here. Unlike his major competition Gwendolyn, you have to pay mana to force a discard, you have to name the card exactly, and even then you have to get lucky that it's even revealed at all. The one unique benefit, that Nebuchadnezzar can force discard of duplicate cards, is almost entirely nullified by Commander's Singleton restriction, and even if you're only trying to hit basic lands, they won't stick around in the hand in multiples by the time you can cast them. Cuneiform your own opinions, but I think you've got better options. Nicol Bolas. Nicol Bolas, pictured here enjoying tasteful erotica, wins most playable of the original Elder Dragons. Whoever's unlucky enough to be domed by Nikki B's massive ego has to discard their whole hand, and if you need me to explain to you why that's good, go rewatch the Gwendolyn DeCorci section. Nicol Bolas is also the only one that ended up being a character as Magic went on, meaning you can also build a theme deck around his various creature and planeswalker incarnations. If you're going to pick a commander from Legends, Nicol Bolas is a good one for beginners. Palladia Moors. Well, at least Flying and Trample is a better combination than Flying and Rampage, but I'm still not Team Palladia Moors. Let's call this one Bleach and Vinegar instead of Bleach and Ammonia. Pavel Maliki. Pavel Maliki, seen here in an art piece commissioned by the Catholic Church and described by flavor text invoking penance, screams nothing but Rakdos to me. See? He increases his own power! Truly this is the portrait of a man driven by nothing but slaking his own sinful desires. Princess Lucrezia. Princess Lucrezia fills the crucial role of 6-drop mana dork, as she taps to add a whole blue to your mana pool. I also love her artwork, which I describe as having the face Maleficent makes when she climaxes. Ragnar. Second in the decidedly a real person series, maybe, my sources are Wikipedia and Civilization 4, Ragnar can regenerate any creature, which is a decent, if overcosted, protection tool. You can build any creature-focused deck you want with Ragnar, and he'll always be there to save your most important pieces. He's even got some opportunities for politicking, as you don't even have to regenerate a creature you control. The thing I love most about him is he's standing in front of my next tattoo design. Rock on, Ragnar. Ramirez DePietro. Oh fuck, he's cute, smash. Ramses Overdark. You'd think that Ramses Overdark is a meme-tier commander alongside the lines of Bartel Runax, but he's actually pretty interesting. There's plenty of auras you can use on other creatures that take effect once the enchanted creature dies. Chief among them is Fool's Demise, which returns the creature in question to the battlefield under your control and itself to your hand. Enchant a creature you want to take over, kill it with Ramses, and then repeat the process all over again. Other auras exist that draw you cards, destroy other creatures, or even auto-attach themselves to creatures from the graveyard so you'll always have a target. It's a linear game plan, but a unique one. Enjoy dropping that $90 on him. Rasputin Dreamweaver. Last but definitely not least in the decidedly a real person series is motherfucking Rasputin, Russia's greatest love machine. He enters with 7 dream counters, which you can immediately cash in for 7 colorless mana. The rest of the card doesn't matter because you're going to throw in an Eldrazi Displacer, throw in a Prismite, and suddenly you have infinite mana which you're going to channel into a game-ending series of Blue Sun Zeniths. He's the most likely commander to become a loaded gun at the table, which, given the source material, is kind of ironic. Riven Turnbull. Riven Turnbull fills the crucial role of 7-drop mana dork, as he taps to add a whole black to your mana pool. I also love his artwork, which I'd describe as the face Maleficent's partner makes when she climaxes. His flavor text is badass too. I'm gonna wrongly attribute it to Bernie Sanders and post it on Twitter. Roga of Carekeep. Roga of Carekeep is a theme deck not for kobolds, but for creatures specifically named Kobolds of Carekeep. That seems overly narrow, but outside of the Kobolds of Carekeep card itself, there's 2 other Roga-ish commander cards that can make the bolds, a land that can, and a little card called Prosh, Skyraider of Care, the definitive food chain commander. For that reason, I think he's been outclassed by the passage of time, but he's still a fun curiosity from Legends, and if you ever wanted to donate all of your kobolds for some reason, you could just refuse to pay his upkeep cost. Rubinia Soulsinger. Wow, Rubinia Soulsinger is still playable today. Tap her to gain control of a creature, and then you can use that creature for as long as Rubinia stays tapped. She even conveniently has a way to skip her own untap if you want to actually use the creature instead of just sacrificing it immediately. Very solid. Of course, she's very competitive now with Mariki Rebarit, who destroys the creature instead of returning it upon untapping, but which you'll prefer will largely depend on if you want to be playing with black or with green. Sir Chandlar of Abaran. I'm actually at a loss for words with this guy, so I'm just gonna note that I have a couple days old drink of Mountain Dew from Taco Bell on my nightstand, and it literally looks like I've been drinking pee. Savitri Skarzim. If I was more innocent, I would not interpret the tamed Savitri's dragon in her flavor text as a euphemism. Now if you excuse me, I have to watch the ending of Shrek again for 2 hours. Solkanar the Swamp King. Solkanar the Swamp King is a great mono-black life gain deck, and... what's that? You say he's actually Grixis? Well, that's a lie, because you're going to want to cast nothing but black spells to pump up your bloodthirsty aerialists, drain your enemies with Veto, or draw cards with Well of Lost Dreams. Solkanar is such a hunk that he can make me into his Lich any day. With cards like Lich's Mastery, of course, turning all of your spells into card draw. I love him. Stang. Stang enters the battlefield with his twin, aptly named... Stang Twin. Woof, you can tell that he's unimportant in the way that non-critical video game characters are named something like Chrono's mom, or Luca's dad, or Luigi. When one dies, the other dies of a broken heart, so make sure to protect both of your commanders, including the commander that isn't your commander. This is definitely one of the creatures I think is completely outclassed by its Dominaria United print, so keep this one around only if you have unresolved twin issues of your own. Senastian Falconer. I didn't even think this guy had a name for a while. I thought he was just some sort of falconer from a place named Senastia. Kick-ass amulet, though. Tetsuo Umezawa. How the hell is Tetsuo Umezawa somehow strictly better than 2 commanders in this very set? He's like if you combined Bartel Runax and Lady Caleria and made him half the cost, and then made it possible for him to snipe tapped creatures even if they're not attacking. Not only is he able to destroy creatures regardless of their toughness, it turns every tapper, of which there are many in blue, into total threats. Not to mention, a 3/3 for 3 is still very playable, even in today's pushed stat lines. Did nobody know what they were doing back when they were releasing this? The Lady of the Mountain. Tobias Andrion. Show the new version. Torsten von Ursus. Nice wing helmet, idiot. I've never before considered what it would be like to be attacked by a living checker set, but damn it, Torsten von Ursus delivers. Honestly, you should have switched the art on this card and Pavel Maliki, and both cards would have made way more sense. Tor Wauki. Didn't I review this card already? Wait, there's 2 legends in the set that deal damage to attacking or blocking creatures? I'm just gonna play the audio from the first one over this. If you wanted to do absurd Death Touch shenanigans, you're much better off helming your deck with Brigid Hero of Kinsbale, who damages each attacking or blocking creature, but maybe you can't get past the face that only a mother could love. Tuknir Deathlock. Yeah, that's pretty solid. Decent, repeatable buff, only 4 mana to cast, 2 to activate, flying. Not good by any stretch of the imagination, but let's say passable draft on common tier. You could never in a million years show me this art and have me believe it's Gruul, though. This is some Darkseed shit. Drago. There's only one reason to build Drago, and that's if you really hate the lone zombies player at your local game store and are too on probation to afford another manslaughter charge. This is the last one, by the way, so if you're playing a good old-fashioned Mountain Walk deck, congratulations! You can never die! Vevictus Asmati. Vevictus Asmati is the runner-up to most playable Elder Dragon because he doesn't mess around with useless garbage like Rampage or Trample, and he doesn't give a totally meaningless toughness bonus either. You attack with him, spend as much mana as you can to pump him up as big as possible, and bam, kill him with commander damage. Zira Iren. Zira asks you the question, do you want to draw a card? And the answer is always yes. Hell, it's target player, so help out the guy that's getting mana screwed and make a friend for the rest of the game. She's also a badass wasp monster, though I have to dock points for her flavor text saying she dons a new costume every hour at the masquerade. That sort of opulence is the type of shit that gets you overthrown by Riven Turnbull. Arcades nuts!